What's going on? It's Ben here, and in this video, I'm going to share my closing process. So, in my experience, and I've tried everybody's script, okay, I've been through so many sales trainings, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and this is the one that I found to be most effective for actually preventing objections and getting to the point where somebody just wants to pay you in full, and not only that, they feel pumped. They're thanking you at the end of the call. I don't know about you if you get refunds, if you get chargebacks. Sometimes this happens because other scripts, other processes, they push people into the sale. You're trying to like convince them, like this is why you need to do this. And they do these weird like stack things. It's like, hey, like if you sign up today, I'll give you this thing and this thing and this thing. So I actually just started selling this new dating offer, and I've never sold dating before. I got my first paid in full, right, on my 6th call, because I was still trying to like figure out, okay, where do I dig, da-da-da. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. And at the end of the call, the guy was like, oh man, I'm like, thank you for letting me in this program because I followed this process. Now, few things. Number one, there's not too much that you need to change in terms of the pitch, all right? Like, it needs to sound like this is the right thing. And I'll just to back up, when I am talking to somebody, and this is like my methodology, is I'm really asking them questions until I'm sold on them that I should make them an offer. So what that looks like is I'm asking them questions to figure out, one, can we help? Will our product or our offer solve their problem? Do I have a strong enough understanding of their situation and for me to actually know that we're going to help? And from there, 2B is, do they have enough pain? Do they have enough reason why they need to change? Do I feel like they're going to be committed? So I ask questions until I find that out. And you don't really need a script, okay? So you can just go with it. Like I listened to the owner of this offer's calls, and she has no script, right? Like it's weird, but she was just closing people because she's good. So I'm like, how can I mimic this? Knowing that I'm not the authority here, right? Like I'm just Ben. I'm a sales guy. And it all starts at the very beginning of the call. The way that you frame the offer or the call is very important. So I say something like this after a bit of rapport. I go, cool, listen, name, lead. This call is very important because the offer owner, we don't accept everybody into our program, right? The reason why we do these calls, the reason why we have these interviews is so that we can make sure that if we do work with you, that we are 100% sure that you're going to be a success story. So I'm going to ask you some questions about your challenges and your goals and your roadblocks and all these things. And from there, if I feel like we can help, I will break down exactly what it looks like to work with us. If not, I'll just try to point you in the best direction. Does that sound good? And they're like, yeah, that sounds perfect. So I go through the whole process, the whole discovery. In the transition, I kind of summarize, okay, so you want this, this is happening, you don't like this, here are some of the roadblocks. Did I miss anything? They're like, no, that sounds perfect. And sometimes I'm like, okay, cool, man. Well, let me ask you, do you want to kind of go off and figure this out on your own, or do you want our help with this? And that's like the first initial like micro commitment. They're like, no, I want help. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I can break down how the program works from A to Z, or you let me know where you want to go from here. And yeah, please let me know. And then I go through the pitch. And a typical pitch is you go through the pillars, and then there's the deliverables, and then there's like a temp check. Maybe you do a bit of future pacing. Cool. So the next steps are we're going to process your tuition or your payment or whatever, and we're going to get you into the program, logged in, and I'm going to book you an onboarding call so that you can set up a game plan, and that way we can start hitting the ground running. Does that sound good? Okay, cool. Any last questions? No. Well, look, you want them to basically ask you how much is it, right? So that's a typical pitch. Now, I like to get them to the point of the discovery where I feel like they're at the point where they're like, yes, I want this. Like they have enough pain, they have enough like urgency to actually act today. And I've tied off all the weird beliefs that show up. For example, like this last call that I had, this guy was saying how he's like, he's just pissed at his situation. Like, I haven't had my dating life handled and it's so annoying. I'm so frustrated and I'm so mad at myself. And I know this could be an objection. So I was like, listen, bro, like that's a good thing. And he's like, what do you mean? Like, if you didn't feel pain about your situation, you would never feel compelled to change it. You would just stay exactly where you're at. So the good thing is that's what pain is there for, is to help us move, like to take action, right? And he's like, yeah. And so anyway, in terms of the process, after I walk them through it, I go, does that make sense? What questions do you have on that process in general? And they might ask me some questions or they might not. And the next thing I'll say is, this is where I start pulling back and I want to draw them into me, right? I'm kind of leaning out. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, if we do let you into this program and we do take you on as a private client, will you be coachable and will you be 100% committed to doing everything that your coach says to ensure that you get this result? Yes or no? And they go, yes. I'm like, all right, good. Now, we generally recommend 2 to 3 hours a week to get the best results. Can you commit to that? And you can just insert your time commitment here. I used to ask this time commitment question in the discovery, but it's so much more powerful in the pitch, because if they're like, yes, I can definitely do that, you're like, all right, perfect. And then you can do the standard temp check. Well, this guy said, yes, I can definitely do that. If I believe this is going to work, I'm all in. And I go, okay, well, let me ask you this. Do you believe this is going to work? And he goes, yes. And then I said, great. What do you feel like would be the most valuable part? And he's like, well, it's this and this, and this thing's cool. This thing's cool. You know, I can't wait for this, da, da, da. I'm like, all right, I got this guy, right? So I'm like, amazing. And then with us, dating offers are typically like low ticket. This one's 10K. So I have to get him to justify to me why he's at a point now that he's willing to invest financially without telling him the price. So otherwise that could just come up as like, whoa, that's like way too much, right? So I just put it on him, right? So this is idea that the client justifies your value to you. For an ROI offer, it's really easy. You can do it for them. You can do the math. But for something like dating, you can't really do that. So you got to ask, well, listen, man, you know, this is not the most cheap program out there, right? There's coaches that will teach you how to date. Like there's other cheaper options out there. The reason why we work with these high level people, you know, the offer owner, she's charged 100K for one-on-one, 50K, has a mastermind for 36. You know, the reason why we charge this much is because one, we get results. But for you, man, if you're going to make an investment, like why? Why is it worth it for you to invest in this area of your life right now? And I let them tell me. It's like, man, I'm just so done with this, da 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 da. I'm like, all right, where do you want to go from here? He's like, well, what's next? I'm still waiting for him to tell me the price. I go, okay, yeah, cool. Once we process your tuition, I'm going to get you into the members area. I'm going to send you a welcome email. And then basically book your one-on-one onboarding call so that we can just get this ball rolling, man. Make sense? Yep. I'm kind of like waiting for him to like, okay, well, like how much is it, right? So cool. Like basically the way I did it is like, okay, well, you don't have to do it this way, but the close that I use this works really great if you want paid in fulls, by the way, is, okay, cool. So basically the program, the mastermind is typically $23,000, okay? However, you know, the offer owner, she wanted to make it just a bit more accessible for guys that may or may not have that much money to invest right now, right? So for that reason, she has given me permission that if I feel like this person's a good fit and we can definitely help them, they're definitely going to be a success story. She's given me permission to give you what we call a XYZ scholarship, so that rather than paying $23K today, if you make a decision today on this call, it's just $10K split up over 3 months, or if you prepay in advance, it's just $8, so you save $2,000. Any questions on how that works? And from there, I mean, the guy was just like, great, how do I pay, right? And it was that easy. So hopefully this helps. Hopefully this gives you some things to think about. I think a lot of the times we just kind of rush through the pitch, and like that thing that I said about the problem being like a good thing, like, dude, like this is a good thing. Like you have to understand that there's little things people say that like are not in alignment with them buying your stuff. And so it's catching yourself on there. But really it's just like, for this call, I just completely threw away the script and I'm just like, okay, like I'm here to help this person. I'm showing up to this call, not as a sales guy, but as an advisor. right? I'm an expert here. Like when this guy was talking to me, all of my feedback from these calls have been like, wow, like Ben's the man. And I'm not saying that to brag, but it's because I'm not showing up as a sales guy. I'm not asking the typical sales questions like, well, what's going to happen if nothing changes, bro? You know, like three simple questions that you could ask to get someone into like I want to buy now state is like, well, what's the challenge? Okay, isolate it a bit. Okay, when that happens, man, and be real with me, how does that make you feel? Like, oh, it's so frustrating. Oh, it's unbearable, bro. Okay, and you're how old? I'm this old. Okay. Well, how much longer do you want this to be a problem? I'm like, I'm ready to, like, I want this done now. Like, I'm done with this. I can't go another day. And like, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, that's like enough, right? And really, it's from there. I find that true sales, it's not like convincing somebody, but if you ask insightful questions to show people where to look. Okay? And that's another video for another time. But hopefully, again, you got a lot of takeaways from this. And with that said, I gotta go. If you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe for more stuff. And just as like an Easter egg, or not an Easter egg, but like a teaser, I guess, I'm gonna start doing like a low kind of like community kind of group, low ticket, you know. So basically, if you want more help like this, or if you want to work with me one-on-one, stay tuned for that. I'll put a Calendly link in the description if you want to have a chat. And from there, you know, I'll jump on the call to you, see if I can help, and I'm gonna hard close the shit out of you. That's a joke. But with that said, it's Zen time, so take it easy.